Hey, it is Lisa Nicole Bell back with another episode of Inspired Living with Lisa Nicole Bell. I'm here in Sacramento, California on a staycation of sorts that I'll talk about a little bit later in this episode. In this episode's Mind Your Own Business segment, I will give you a little known time management tip that successful people use to get more done in less time. And in Your Life Only Better, I will share a little known success secret that a friend of mine shared with me while I was in Texas on the Extreme Entrepreneurship Tour. And of course, I will tell you what Lisa likes, which is something that I use often and I think you should use too. All of that and more in this episode of Inspired Living with Lisa Nicole Bell. All right, so this episode's Mind Your Own Business segment comes to you courtesy of Success Magazine and the CD that's included. Darren Hardy does this really cool interview with people who are featured in the magazine, and shout out to my dad for getting me a subscription to Success Magazine. And in this particular edition, he was talking about time management. He was talking about how you get more done in less time, how can you increase your energy, increase your productivity. And one of the things they talked about was what I call blasting, right? We heard of this concept first with fitness, where they say go really hard for 30 seconds and then switch up and do something else, okay? This is like cardio blast. Well, you can also do this with your productivity, right? If you go really hard for 90 minutes and then you take 5 or 10 minutes off to completely decompress and do something unrelated, what you find is that you're more focused, you're more productive, and you're able to move forward more quickly during the 90 minutes that you're actually working. So, I highly recommend breaking your schedule up into these 90-minute chunks and also planning something really cool to do in between. So for me, I really like fruit snacks. I really like walks outside, so I might go hard and write for 90 minutes. I might plow through a bunch of emails for 90 minutes and then take 10 to 15 minutes to do something totally unrelated, allow my brain to kind of rest, and then I go back in and I do another 90-minute blast of productivity. There is a diminishing marginal return on your productivity. You may have experienced this if you're going really, really hard on a project for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. Your energy level, focus, and productivity goes like this. So, what we do instead is we go hard for 90 minutes, we check out, we allow ourselves a break, we go back up, we go hard for 90 more minutes, we come down, we allow ourselves a break, we go back up, we go back in, right? So that means your productivity level is much higher at a sustained period of time than it would be if you were attempting to just go in for 5 or 6 hours at a time. So that means that you should break your calendar up in ways that are consistent with these, what I call productivity blasts of 90 minutes at a time. So if you have a task that you need to do, the question is, can you get it done in 90 minutes? If you can't, where is the stopping point for you to take your break and then pick that back up after you take your 5 to 10 minute interval off from doing that activity? That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you mind your own business. All right, so in this episode segment of Your Life Only Better, I'm going to give you a little success secret that Bert Gervais, also known as the Mentor Guy, shared with me when we were on the road speaking at an event together. It was the Extreme Entrepreneurship Tour. Shout out to all the lovely folks in Plainview, Texas and Lubbock, Texas. We had a blast with them. So he and I were discussing success, and I said, tell me what you think is most important in the quest to be successful. What's the trait that you recognize in successful people that seems common? And I found what he told me to be interesting because it's not something you hear all the time. He said that successful people have a smaller gap between the time they think of something or conceive of an idea and the time they act on it, right? So this is conception, this is execution. Their gap is like this, whereas the average person's gap is here, or it doesn't even exist at all because they never get going. I think that's an important point that can't be overstated. It's so important that when you have a fantastic idea, you plan, you get into action. Even if it's a small step, taking one step forward really does start the ball rolling. It really does create some momentum. In his amazing book, Do the Work, Stephen Pressfield really addresses the necessity of overcoming what he calls resistance. And so I think it's important that you make plans immediately to get going. Oftentimes the reason we're not taking action is because we don't know what action we need to take. So write your ideas on paper, decide on the next most logical action. Use low-hanging fruit, which is just the simplest, easiest, most accessible next step that you can take that's going to move you closer to your goal. So we are closing the gap between conception and execution. This, my friends, is one of the secrets that successful people know and everyone else doesn't. I encourage you to close the gap today, and that is how you make it your life only better. So a staycation is when you stay in your city or go to a city that's nearby and you switch up your routine, right? You do things that resemble vacation, but you actually stayed. So it's a staycation. For instance, I decided to take a visit to the lovely Capitol building here, which you saw behind me, and maybe check out some of the food, find out what the locals do, and of course, I got this really cool statue behind me of a naked lady. I would have never been able to see a lady sitting down with no shirt on in LA. I mean, really? You gotta love that. Well, that's all for this episode of Inspired Living with Lisa Nicole Bell. And until next time, be inspired.